Hi, Ijao Martins, licensed marriage and family therapist, couples therapist. So for the past couple weeks, we've been exploring parts related to infidelity in the context of ADHD brain. So there's a presumption that with ADHD brain, one is more likely to lose its impulse control and give way to the two parts we're exploring, the dopamine chaser, I feel it right here, and the taboo lover, I feel in my chest going upwards. Um, I think it's more complicated than that, and I think there are more parts involved in this process, and it's worth looking at them. So I want to introduce to you two more parts today. One is called inner critic. The other part is called the shame. You're probably familiar with those two parts already. You don't have to delve into the field of infidelity and transgression to feel those parts. Most of us actually have those parts and they come to us and jump into our lives almost daily. So when you are in the place, when you are violating a taboo, when your brain is feeling really excited about this new person, can you just stay with those two parts? And actually, we explored last week the sensations actually quite lovely. If you were to be able to stay here forever and never really feel the other parts getting involved, life can be actually quite different, right? Maybe certain population do stay in those areas all the time and never feels the shame or guilt and other emotions. But most of us, I believe that we do struggle among all those parts that get into a tug of war. So how does shame look like and feel like in our body, and how did it come into play in this dynamic? Let's do some exploration today. So conceptually, we have the taboos, which are some rules and some agreed upon values that set out express itself as things that need to be followed in certain groups and populations. And when those rules, we can call it the law that's written on the paper or being passed on by word of mouth, that is established externally outside of ourselves. But we do internalize those rules, and then that develops some voices. Sometimes they're thoughts, sometimes they're voices that you hear inside of you. Those are called inner critics. They start to think, well, I shouldn't be doing that, I should be doing this. And when you show up, say, in the situation of our discussion, infidelity, you may hear a voice saying, oh, you shouldn't have looked. You shouldn't have talked to this person. You shouldn't have. There's a lot of shouldn't have. That's one category called should, could, have done. The other type of voice are saying, you are naughty. You are selfish. You are weak. This fall into the category of you are bad or you're not good enough. Both of them or voices from the inner critics. So how do you locate them, and what is your experience when your inner critics are present? For me, I hear a lot of voices and I feel a lot of sensations all over my head, tend to be like the front and the side of my brain. And some of my clients telling me they experience this part as a visor around their forehead and eyes, and almost to look out for them, always make sure they're going to the right direction and doing the right things. And that's very interesting. So what is your experience when you recall the moments or when you catch yourself throughout your day that there are inner critics that's taking over your system? Where do you experience them? Do you feel them in your head? Do you feel them inside of you, outside of you, behind you? Comment down below and let me know. Those are very interesting explorations. So when I hear a lot of inner critics, this part started blah, 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 I'm talking a lot. I notice at some point there's a shift inside of me. So the energy accumulate and develop into a different part for me. I call it shame. It starts for me from my eyes. I notice it's such a heaviness that my eyes cast down. Even wanted to close in some way, don't want to see. And then the energy pull from my head towards my face downward. So my head will be going down and the energy will going down. I feel a lot of sensation in my face pulling in downward. The whole energy is going in and down. And I also noticed started from my extremities, my hands and my legs. When I was experimenting and exploring, I was lying down. I noticed energy literally pulling from my hands and my feet along my extremity towards the center of my body and gets smaller and tighter. And then I noticed a knot in my stomach, which indicates some anxiety for me. And then also notice at some point my lower back start to feel heavy. For me, that's a sign of fear. So the whole dynamic in my body is shrinking, coming to the center, almost like wanting to disappear. And there's a thought that comes to my mind that I want to be buried. I want to disappear. I want to become a little ball and get buried in the dirt. Don't see me. So when I'm in that place of shame, I notice some emotions that's within this shame umbrella, and that's anxiety, that's fear. And that leads to me behavior-wise, action-wise, wanted to isolate myself. I want to cut off from the outside world. The message is don't see me. And in the meantime, I'm also cutting myself out from internally, from inside. I don't want to see me. You're so disgusting. I don't want to see you. And that's the message I got from this shameful part. And you can imagine, or you can, stay with this place. It's very uncomfortable. The breaths are very shallow, almost diminished. And I notice my heart rate is actually going up with the anxiety. And my vitalities, my energies are shrinking and going down, coming almost disappeared. And it's very hard for me to think. My thoughts are all like jumbled. There's a lot of things going on. A lot of inner critics keep piling things up and adding to the heaviness of the shoulders and the labored breath. And from this place, you can imagine it's very hard to problem solve. You cannot even see. So you cannot grow. You cannot make any changes. It is the annihilation of the self. It's a very dark, very closed place. So let's tag the shame, the inner critic with the other two parts, the dopamine chaser, and hear from me, and the taboo lover, hear from me. So when, let's say, the contact of infidelity happens, there's a taboo that one violates the rules and did something the opposite of what's the expectation. While you're having pleasure, for me, it's a blink, blink, blink here, and the stream of energy going, pushing up against the taboo to lift up my chest and giving me more room to breathe. Well, the inner critic is happening and start to beat me down, and then I come into shame. The shame part take over, and I shrink and disappear. One does not really want to disappear. There's a part of us who want to live, wanted to survive, want to grow, wanted to be different and heal. So this part may likely go say, I don't like how it feels to be in this place. I don't really want to disappear yet, but I don't know other ways to come out of this, to be in myself and to study and to see where I did wrong. How can I correct that? And for some people, they go directly back to the dopamine chaser and have such strong taboo lover to push it back. And it's very pleasurable, so they may just jump between the two. Dopamine chaser, taboo lover, pleasure. inner critic, shame, clamp down and disappearing, near death almost. So they jump between the two places back and forth, and there's a lot of struggle, a lot of tension. But they cannot go beyond that. They cannot break through. So I think that is the dynamic happens inside of someone who is crossing a line, involved in infidelity or transgression. And I believe that is what actually pulled that person stay in that place, couldn't change and couldn't acknowledge what they did and repair with their partner. I believe it's not only the dopamine chaser and the taboo lover that's in action. I believe it's the whole dynamic, whole tug of war that caused that struggle. So then what's the difference between shame and guilt, you may say? I wanted to spend one session next week to explore the difference between shame and guilt in the body. So until next time,